We finally know who Texas A&M's three protected rivals are for the upcoming SEC schedule starting in 2026. Let's dive into it.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. You are Locked On the Texas A&M Aggies. I am your host, Matt Galatzan, publisher of Texas A&M Aggies on SI. Thank you for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. Harrison, we finally know the entirety of the 9-game SEC conference schedule protected opponents. It was released earlier today by Chris Lowe. And it's kind of interesting. There's a few in there that we, didn't really expect. We'll break down Texas A&M. We'll break down some of the other SEC, protected rivals. And then in our next segment, we'll get into some early Auburn talk. They're coming off a tough loss to Oklahoma over the weekend. And then we'll break down the AP Top 25. The Aggies have moved up in that. But first, Harrison, I don't know about some of these, man. I like the 3 game. I like the ones that some of these teams have. I like the ones that Texas A&M has for the most part. But some of these are pretty surprising. Let's break down Texas A&M first. So Texas A&M has LSU, which I love. They have Texas, which you got to keep that one for sure. But the surprising one here for me is Missouri. I did not see that one coming. I expected it to be Arkansas. I don't know about you, but Texas A&M, I feel like they got a pretty tough draw here.
Yeah, I think compared to these other teams, the Aggies have the most reason not to be jumping up and down at their 3-game slate. I was with you. I thought Arkansas was for sure number 3 here in between Texas and LSU. I was a little bit shocked that Missouri got in there. I was thinking, Now, here's the issue. You got teams like Texas A&M and Oklahoma, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, Auburn, where you got plenty of rivals, like just all around, like have no shortage. It's just picking the best 3. A&M's one of those cases. Then you have other ones that it's like, man, they have nobody, just nobody to choose from, really. And you're kind of just grasping at straws just to try to make something work. The Aggies weren't one of those cases. The Aggies had plenty of different options here. And I think when I look at this list, A&M got one of the hardest draws of the actual realistic contenders in the SEC. So I'm not talking about Vanderbilt, and I get it, they're having a good year, so maybe I regret saying that right now. But your traditional contenders in the SEC, a la Texas A&M, Texas, Georgia, Alabama, teams you expect year to year to be in that conversation. A&M probably got the toughest draw, if not one of, for sure. Because I look at the other around the board. I don't see too many others that are as difficult on a year-to-year basis. A&M's going to have a tough game versus LSU year-to-year. A&M's going to have a really good game on Hate Week versus Texas. And under Eli Drinkwitz, Missouri's become a respectable 8-10 win program in the SEC since they joined this conference. And Drinkwitz has delivered them to that. That's not going to be an easy game year-to-year. But then you go look, Matt, and you look at the slate that Tennessee's grabbed. Tennessee has a 1-game annual schedule. That's Alabama. And then you're putting Mark Stoops and Diego Paviolis Vanderbilt down back to pasture. It's honestly, most of these are kind of a joke. Tennessee has 1 real game. Everybody else really has about 2. But in A&M's case, you have 3 really real football games that you could all lose in any given year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Arkansas is pretty tough. They have pretty much the same slate as A&M, so you got to feel for the Hogs there because they are not on the level of Texas A&M right now. Alabama's got a pretty tough one. You got Auburn and Tennessee, but Mississippi State traditionally is pretty much a doormat. Auburn, Alabama, Georgia, that's tough. I mean, but I kind of agree with you. I mean, Ole Miss has an interesting one with LSU and Oklahoma. We'll see where Oklahoma goes. I did not expect that one to be with to be on for Ole Miss.
That's
I
one of the
expected it to be
Ole Miss
someone
is one of
else.
those ones is it's where it's like you're grasping at straws to kind of find a rivalry. I mean,
Hmm.
outside of Mississippi State, I mean, you could have put Alabama on there if you wanted to, but I guess since Nick Saban's not there, they didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I would have expected something like that. Vanderbilt maybe because Ole Miss's old protected rival was Vanderbilt before the change from the divisional structure. Texas's makes sense. Texas A&M, Arkansas, Oklahoma. That's like all their traditional rivals wrapped up in a bow. But kind of looking through these, man, it is really hard to imagine a tougher one than Texas A&M has. I mean, the only other one obviously is Auburn. You know, you get uh, Alabama and Georgia on your schedule every single year. That's brutal. That's just brutal. You hate to see that for the Tigers. Not really, because I'm not an Auburn guy. But
Here's the good news, Matt. Hugh Freeze doesn't have to lose to Diego Pavi after this year. Diego
that's
Pavi is
true.
gone. The
That's true.
kryptonite to Hugh Freeze is gone after this year.
That's true. And then you look at Oklahoma's like Ole Miss. Ole Miss seems like a problem right now. Like they're a perennial 10-win team right now under Lane Kiffin. Then you get Missouri. We just talked about Eli Drinkwitz. You get Texas, who's going to be good, for a while. But overall, like I really don't know what to think about some of these. I like Texas A&M's. I think all of them make sense. I just would have expected Arkansas instead of Missouri. Because they have that. I mean, they have a rivalry game named after it, Southwest Classic. There's a trophy involved. They just moved to home and home this year, so I would have expected that. But otherwise, I think it sets up pretty nicely for Texas A&M. You'll get Texas at the end of the year. You'll probably get LSU every year in October. You'll get Missouri every year in late October, early November. And geographically, it makes sense because there's not a lot of schools that geographically make sense with Missouri. Arkansas does, Texas A&M does, Oklahoma does, and that's who Missouri has. So they've got a decently tough slate as well, depending on what happens. But overall, I'm excited they finally released this because now we know what to expect over at least the next 4 years. The kicker, though, Harrison, is that after the next 4 years, starting next season in 2026, you'll have these in 2026, 2027, 2028, and 2029. In 2030, they're going to go back and they're going to look at this. They're going to make any changes that they feel necessary. And so it could shuffle a little bit. But for right now, these are your three protected rivals. If you're Texas A&M, you got LSU, you got Missouri, and you got Texas. And the Aggies are probably sitting there looking at the Aggie fans, at least, are probably sitting there looking at that like, damn, why are they coming? Why is the SEC coming after us? Just when we start off 3-0 and we look like we're a college football playoff contender, we get arguably the toughest draw of the bunch. That is going to be something to look for going forward. But Harrison, let's take our first break. When we come back, we are going to talk about Auburn, get our first look at the game on Saturday. It's one of the biggest games in the SEC this upcoming weekend, and see what we think about the Tigers and how they match up with Texas A&M. So stick with us after this break, and we'll be right back. Quick question for all you football fans out there. If you could go back in time and sit front row at your school's biggest rivalry game, what hat would you be wearing? Yes, I said hat. For me, it would be the game. These aren't just hats. They're the same vintage styles we wore back in the 80s and 90s. And guess what? They'll still go for the same price they did back then. When you use code LOCKEDON, you will get your vintage hat for just $16.99. I've got one right here. It's the old school circle design. Really great. You can't beat it. They've got a bunch of different designs too that are inspired by this. They got the bar caps. Really anything you can think of from back in the day, they've got it, and it's really affordable if you use the code. So grab your team's classic bar retro circle design. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for an exclusive discount because legends wear the game. All right, Harrison. Auburn week. Texas A&M's coming off a bye week to get things, get their guys healthy, kind of recoup and recover after just a emotional, knockdown, drag out matchup against Notre Dame. and they're catching the Tigers at a pretty good time. I feel like Oklahoma really, I think, got away with a win there in Norman. A lot of controversy in that game. A non-PI call on Cam Coleman, that weird, shouldn't have been a touchdown, unsportsmanlike call that the refs missed, with Satanga kind of going out and pretending like he's subbing out and then being free and running down the sideline. A missed fumble call that Auburn returned for a touchdown that should have been a fumble. A lot of stuff there. So Auburn is coming off a really emotionally draining matchup from Jackson Arnold's return to Norman. And now they have to take on arguably the most explosive offense in the SEC right now in Texas A&M. They do have some advantages in their favor, some things that could cause A&M problems, but you got to think that Auburn is going to be of one of two mindsets coming into this week. It's either we're pissed off and we want to prove that we shouldn't have lost that last game. We're going to come out, we're going to get a big win. Or could it be the classic Hugh Freeze, like we stumbled last week and now it's going to affect us going forward into the next week kind of mentality? So certainly an interesting matchup this weekend with the Tigers.
Yeah, I'm real curious to see how they handle this week in front of the media. Because I don't know about you, Matt, but it feels like the noise surrounding the SEC officiating performance on Saturday, I don't know if I remember a game in recent memory that has sparked such great debate about it. Like, it is every single mainstream media person that covers college football year round. I'm not talking the part-time people at ESPN that only do it when it's football season. I'm talking about the guys that are creating content about college football 365 days a year are talking about how awful the officiating is. I can't think of a game that sparked this discussion. I know there's usual debate and arguments and complaining about it from year to year, from game to game. But the game on Saturday was awful, by all means. One of the worst officiated games I've seen. And that has the opportunity to derail teams. Sometimes they talk about letting a team beat you twice. Does Auburn let that happen to them? Not to mention, they're going to have to go on the road again and beat a team in a crazy environment. The Oklahoma environment, I'm sure the atmosphere looked awesome on TV. I'm sure it was crazy. It's definitely sounded like it was noisy, but it's probably going to be amped up times 10 going to Kyle Field on Saturday, because this is the first real home game that A&M fans get all year long. This is the first. Oklahoma already had one. Oklahoma had Michigan going to Gaylord early in this year, and Oklahoma delivered. Now Auburn goes from losing that heartbreaker, if you want to call it a heartbreaker, to going to Texas A&M, a Texas A&M team that's going to have a ton of confidence coming off of a road win in South Bend, and now you're going to catch them at home in a tough place to play, coming off of that debacle. And I'm real curious to see how they handle it, Matt, because I think the main takeaway I have about this Auburn team, well, I have two. Hugh Freeze's offense is dependent upon so many things going his way. The RPO game, it's dependent upon his offensive line holding up just long enough. It's dependent upon Jackson Arnold having the confidence that his guys are going to be where they're going to be and that he's seeing what he's supposed to see. That it just makes this so, I guess, interesting to see. I don't quite know what to expect there. What Jackson Arnold are we going to get? Because there were times I saw multiple former college quarterbacks commenting he was holding the ball way too long at times in that game, which contributed to those sacks. And then the other takeaway is, man, that Auburn offensive line was like burnt toast on Saturday. 9 sacks. I have not seen that in a big-time major college football game. I can't think of the last time I watched 2 top 25 teams and one of them walks out of there with 9 sacks. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, that was the first thing I was going to point out. I don't know if Texas A&M is capable of getting the 9 sacks, but it certainly seems like they're going to be able to eat against this Auburn passing attack when Jackson Arnold drops back, because 9 sacks is insane. I mean, you got to give Oklahoma a little bit of credit in this game. Their defense came to play. 9 sacks is not easy to do. Jackson Arnold was tearing it up on the ground all season long, and because of those 9 sacks, he had 20 carries for minus 11 yards. He had one 15-yard run, but for the most part, they held him in check. You talk about holding Damari Alston to 7 carries for 25 yards. Jeremiah Cobb had 6 carries for 61 yards, but one of those was a 44-yarder. Outside of that, he had 5 for 17. So you're really holding them in check pretty well. And this receiver group outside of Cam Coleman, really had problems making explosive plays. I mean, Eric Singleton really had the only other explosive play with an 18-yarder. That's kind of mid-explosive. That's not technically explosive. He had 9 catches for 60 yards. I mean, Cam Coleman looked like a dude. I mean, he's looking like Randy Moss out there with some of those catches he was making. But one of the biggest moments of the game, obviously, Oklahoma gets away with a PI on Cam Coleman where he's literally getting tackled before the ball even gets there. Refs miss it. Otherwise, that could have also
passed.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what Texas A&M's offense can do against this, or Texas A&M's defense rather can do against this Auburn offense, because there are some certain things that Auburn does that gives them problems. Mainly Jackson Arnold, his ability to run the football. A&M has struggled with mobile quarterbacks in the past. You just look last year at Lenoris Sellers and some of these other I mean, hell, Quinn Ewers almost ripped off a 70-yarder last year against Oklahoma if he had stepped out of bounds. They haven't had to deal with that too much so far this year, so it'll be interesting to see how they've adjusted from last year and how they combat Arnold's legs. But this is going to be a very interesting matchup in terms of figuring out whether or not A&M has used the bye week to figure out their holes in their defense. Cam Coleman is going to be a problem for the secondary, I feel like. And Eric Singleton is going to be a problem. Can A&M hold up defensively is going to be my biggest question. But in terms of what A&M is going to be able to do offensively, this is a pretty good Auburn defense. I know that they gave up some yardage through the air to John Mateer. He was 24 of 36 for 271 and a score, but they held him in check on the ground where he's been really good so far. 10 carries, 29 yards. That's not that much. And in terms of, getting pressure on him, they only had 1 sack, but they had 6 TFLs. So it'll be interesting to see. I feel pretty good about the A&M offense against this Auburn defense, just because I don't know if anybody can stop this A&M offense, but I don't know. I feel like this is going to be one of the more interesting games to watch this week for sure on what honestly is a loaded slate.
Yeah, I want to go back to what you're talking about with the Auburn receivers real quick before we talk about the A&M offense. I mean, look, I think Matt said it. Cam Coleman's going to be a problem. I don't know if you can take Cam Coleman out of this football game. You can't. And it's going to be a really great challenge to A&M in terms of they're going to figure out ways how they can limit him. Do not give up the explosives. We saw at times when Jackson Arnold didn't have the confidence and things weren't going his way in the quick game, they decided, hey, buddy, just throw it up there. Screw it. He's down there somewhere, and go find him. And I think that's what you're going to see. I think that's the one problem with Hugh Freeze's offense. Cam Coleman could be on a whole different level. This offense can be on a whole different level if they just ask Jackson Arnold to go out there and let it rip. Because there's not a corner in the country, I don't think, that you're going to ask to go play one-on-one with Cam Coleman and expect to win majority of those battles. And that's not going to change on Saturday. It's not going to change in 6 Saturdays from now. Cam Coleman's going to be a problem, and Eric Singleton's going to be a problem. He was a constant issue versus Georgia's defense at Georgia Tech last year with a quarterback who I think was playing with one functioning shoulder in that game in November last year. But in terms of A&M's offense, I think you talked about it with A&M's defense. Jackson Arnold and his legs is probably going to be the X factor, but the same thing goes for Texas A&M's offense. What can Marcel Reed do with his legs? We've seen him at his best. I was really impressed with what he did the week before. I think it was Utah State. You really started to see you started to see the agility again. Like I forgot how elite of an athlete Marcel Reed was. It's because they really hadn't needed him to run. And you saw it a little bit on display versus Notre Dame, whereas I think versus Notre Dame was more so in areas where he wasn't tucking the ball down he wasn't, once he got out of the pocket, got out of structure, was like, hey, I'm running with it. It was, hey, I'm keeping my eyes downfield. I'm still looking to make a play. And he made some big plays out of structure, downfield. What does he do this weekend versus this Auburn defense? Because like you said, I still think this Auburn defense is really good. It gave Oklahoma's offense, which has been pretty high-powered, a lot of issues. It's not going to be a walkover by any sense. But much like John Mateer had some Superman moments on Saturday, A&M's going to need some Superman moments from Marcel Reed. And To be honest with you, Matt, I feel a little bit better about this matchup for Texas A&M than I did for Auburn because Texas A&M has a much better offensive line. I mean, you talk about burnt food. Oklahoma had 2 or 3 starters down. That was a completely new unit. They haven't had a functioning offensive line healthy in God knows 2 years. A&M brings back 4 out of the 5 starters. I think they have technically 6 starting capable offensive linemen that can start anywhere else in the SEC. You have to feel good about that.
Yeah, absolutely. A&M has its top 6 offensive linemen from last season. If they were banged up in any sort of way, they were able to get healthy during the bye week. So I think that's going to be sort of an X factor that not a lot of people talk about is this Texas A&M offensive line versus a really good Auburn defensive line. Keldrick Falk is an absolute animal. So we'll see. I agree with you. I think Marcel Reed and his legs are going to kind of be an X factor. Can Mario Craver continue to be an absolute demon on the outside? And in those explosive plays, he's leading the nation in receiving right now. I think still after the bye week, I'd have to check, but he's pretty dang close. Actually, let me look real quick because I'm pretty sure he's right up there. Hold on, bear with me. Okay, receiving yards. Okay, he's now he just had a bye week and didn't get to play. He's still 3rd in the nation in receiving yards at 433. Skylar Bell of UConn passed him this week, who has 16 more receptions than he does on the season, and Chase Hendricks of Ohio also passed him. He's the leader right now with 456. He has 8 more receptions than Mario Craver. So if he can get the ball in his hands and he can be explosive, A&M's going to have a good day, I think. But it'll all depend on how A&M responds defensively against this Auburn offense as well. But all right, let's move on to our next segment. We're going to talk about the AP Top 25 when we come back and sort of go through some risers, some fallers, and where we think A&M sits and how we feel about that. So stick with us after this break, and we'll be right back. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Today's show is also brought to you by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that truly make the neighborhood feel like home. Whether it's the local sports bar packed on game days, the coffee shop that knows your order by heart, or the corner deli that's been serving your community for decades, these are places that bring the people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. Those local spots would make the neighborhood feel like home, and so many of them run on Square, including some of my favorite spots in College Stations like Tortilleria Mi Tierra, Southern Cafe, Stella Southern Cafe, and LJ's Barbecue. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square. See you in the neighborhood. All right, Harrison. The new top 25 was released this week. Some surprises, some not so. Some I understand. I think that the biggest surprise for me is that Indiana moves up 8 spots after beating Illinois. That's a major rise for them, 63-10. I get it. I still think Illinois was, wildly overrated. I think Indiana deserves credit, but 8 spots, that seems like a lot. Another major riser was Texas Tech after their dominant win over Utah. They moved up 5 spots to number 12. USC moves into the top 25, or moves up in the top 25. Illinois drops 14 spots. They're by far the biggest loser this week. Texas drops 2 spots to number 10 after a 55-0 win over Sam Houston. I get it, but some of these drops are pretty surprising to me. Florida State drops after beating Kent State 66-10. What did they do wrong? Oklahoma moves up 4 spots. Penn State drops after a bye week. I get it because Florida or Miami beats Florida and they move up to number 2. LSU drops after a 56-10 win over Southeastern. But Texas A&M, after a bye week, actually moves up to number 9. They move ahead of Texas, right behind Florida State there at number 9. I feel like this is a pretty fair spot for Texas A&M. They are playing like a top 10 team right now.
Yeah, I mean, you have one of the most impressive wins in college football right now. I don't care that Notre Dame's 0-2. They've played 2 of the hardest games in college football. They lost to the number 2 ranked team in the country, and now they lost to the number 9 ranked team in the country. Like, I think A&M's are in a really good spot. I think you have a great case to be a top 10 team. I think you even have a case to be a top 8 team. I think if Notre Dame turns this thing around, starts getting some easy wins like they're supposed to, like A&M could rise up just because Notre Dame keeps doing well. By no means are the Irish out of this. I mean, they're 1-2, excuse me. 1-2, they're down there at 22. Matt, I mean, you look at the rest of the schedule here for A&M. You got to play the number 10 team. You're going to have to play let me pull up A&M schedule so I don't just say random opponents. Make sure I'm correct here. You got to play the number 8 team, or 10 team, this is Texas. You play the number 4 team. You play the number 20 team. So you're talking 3 more ranked opponents. Auburn being unranked, a little bit shocking to me. Thought Auburn, even with a loss, would still be ranked for A&M going into A&M this weekend. But I mean, I'm looking at the AP poll. We all have our reservations about the AP poll. We all have our criticisms. I think they've got it right. I think Ohio State, until proven otherwise, deserves the number 1 spot. They have probably and arguably the best win in college football this year. Right behind them, Miami's looked the part. Until they don't look the part, I think you have to put them at 2. Penn State's going to have every chance in the world to prove that they deserve to be number 2 this weekend. But until Penn State and James Franklin win a top 10 matchup, I'm not buying in on Penn State. I don't know about you. That might just be me. But I'm satisfied with how the AP poll looks right now, especially in the top 10. Because like you said, I think A&M's in a really good spot right now, and I think that's probably about where you want them to be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with Penn State moving down after a bye. I don't have a problem with Iowa State moving down after a bye, or Alabama moving down after a bye. 3 spots seems like a lot, but still, I don't mind moving down after a bye. Where I have a problem with the AP poll this week is teams moving down after dominant wins. Like, I understand, I understand Miami moving up from number 4 to number 3, or to number 2 rather. LSU won 56-10. I know it was Southeastern, but they did exactly what they were supposed to do. Same with Florida State. I don't particularly understand that. I don't understand Texas. 55-0. That's the best game they played all season, and they get penalized for it, moving down 2 spots. Granted, I do think Texas A&M is a better football team than Texas is right now, at least over the last few weeks. They have played better football than Texas. We'll see what happens when they face off head-to-head at the end of the year. But generally speaking, I pretty much agree with the list. There are some teams that I think probably should have made their way into the top 25. I think Auburn should still be in there. Mississippi State got a lot of votes. I would have them in there over BYU. I would have both of those teams in there over BYU. I don't know how Houston's not getting a vote. They're undefeated. That's kind of a minor gripe there. Utah falls completely out of the top 25 after their loss, which, I mean, they got dominated, so that's fine. But I have a problem with Notre Dame being in there. You're 1-2. You lost your only two decent games. Illinois should have dropped out completely, in my opinion. So there's still some spots that I think they didn't get right, but for the most part, I think it's fine. I'm just, kind of griping because I like to gripe about the AP poll because I don't think they do a very good job over there, typically, at least historically. But hey, it's just me.
And you got the voter, 1 or 2 voters each week to say, or there was the female the other week that said she didn't really care. Like, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, which is why she threw away her vote, essentially what she did. So yeah, until the AP poll and all their voters decide they want to care about it, I guess we can gripe about it. That is until the CFP poll, the college football playoff rankings come out. Then we can gripe about that, Matt, which is going to be fun. That's our favorite tradition in terms of rankings.
Yeah, I mean, nothing really matters until the college football playoff poll comes out. So this is just kind of fun fodder to complain about. And, you get some bragging rights if you're Texas A&M because you're a top 10 football team now. You deserve to be a top 10 football team. And you should be able to flaunt that a little bit. So good for the Aggies. All right, so that's going to do it for another episode of Locked On Aggies. Thank you so much for making Locked On Aggies your first listen today. But it's another big moment for Locked On. College football fans, Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. It's a college football playoff preview, or a college football preview, rather, that only Locked On can do. Catch college football Catch college football kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to our channel, subscribe to our podcast. Give me a follow on Texas A&M Aggies on SI and on X at Matt Galatzan. Follow Harrison on X at Harrison Reno, and we will see you next time. I still think Arkansas should be that third rival, Harrison. I don't know about you.